Have you had an encounter you'd like to hear narrated on this channel? If so, send me an email with all the details. You can email me at contact@buckeyebigfoot.com. Well, hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Buckeye Bigfoot. Tonight I have a comment and an email that go together, and then we have a second email. Now, I'm going to tell you all about it, but go ahead and grab your snackage, get on up in the saddle, because we're going to head straight down into Sasquatch Valley, starting right now. This comment was left on a recent video on July 18th titled, "The Choice That Bigfoot Didn't Make Haunts Him." And here's what Tina wrote. We rented a cabin about 20 miles from Franklin, North Carolina, near the Tuckasegee River in September 2024. We had 5 nights of Squatch activity. This cabin was very secluded, and it was not built with the intentions of kids going there. You could easily fall to your death. Dangerous roads going up. One night, I almost had the life scared out of me. We had rocks thrown at us, whoops that almost sounded like sirens, tree knocks, and one night something staring in the window. I would definitely go back. That was the most beautiful view I have ever seen. Well worth the Squatch activity. After that comment, Tina mentioned that she was going to send in an email describing what happened during those 5 days, and she did. Here's Tina's email. Dear Nance, I left a comment in your most recent episode about activity near Franklin, North Carolina, Bryson City, North Carolina. Here goes. My 2 sons rented a cabin in September 2024 outside of Bryson City, North Carolina. One morning, my youngest son informed me that we needed a vacation, and 1 week later, we were on our way. He told me that his boss suggested this cabin if he was looking for privacy. We arrived in Bryson City, North Carolina, and made our way to the cabin. After some very sketchy roads and switchbacks, we arrived. My first thought was, who in the heck would build a cabin here? It was built on a sliver of land and a cliff. Definitely could fall and get hurt, or fall to your death. We looked around and went inside. Second thought, who would put bear cans right by the front door? Note to self, do not take the trash out at night. When we went inside, I knew exactly why they built this cabin here. The views were amazing and surreal. We did bring many things with us, like food, guns, etc., so we started unloading the car. The first account. My youngest son came in, and something threw a rock and hit him in the calf. Well, I thought maybe a rock rolled off the cliff that was in front of the house. He said it was thrown very hard, and later that night it was turning blue. Well, we unpacked and rode around the area, came home, and cooked steaks on the grill. We were tired and settled down and went to bed. This place was a 3-level cabin, and my room was on the bottom level all by myself. Their rooms were on the 3rd level. I showered and sat in a recliner near a huge window looking for something on the TV. This is the second activity. I kept feeling uncomfortable, like I was being watched. I tried to ignore it, but the feeling would not go away. I decided to go to the kitchen/living room area to sleep. I sat on the couch, flipping the channels, when I heard something heavy walk on the porch and stop at the front door. Now, my oldest is 7 feet 1 inches, 300 pounds, and I heard him walk on that porch all day. Whatever was out that door weighed well over 300 pounds. I thought maybe it was an old bear trying to get at the garbage cans, but it never moved. I sat there for a few minutes, scared to look out the blinds, like my legs quit working. I waited for the bear to hit the cans, but nothing moved. Whatever it was, it just stood there at the door, not moving. Then the thought ran through my head, is it a human? I turned my head to the kitchen, looking for a butcher knife, and I saw my son's gun laying on the counter, and I grabbed that. I went and sat back down on the couch. This thing or person never moved. They were still there. I sat there for 2 hours waiting for it to leave. I thought about getting my sons up to look, but I knew they would go out there. They are not believers in cryptids, and they think it's nonsense. I eventually fell asleep with the gun on my lap. I woke up the next morning, made coffee, and went outside to look for prints, but most of the area was covered in gravel. Did not see or smell anything. Third activity. The next day we went out and did our adventures and came home, and I cooked dinner. Afterwards I was sitting on the back deck, second level, reading and drinking coffee, when all of a sudden I heard a loud whoop, and it sounded like almost a siren 50 yards to my left. I thought, are the boys messing with me? But I did not hear the door alarms go off. Just as that thought left my head, I heard a tree knock to my right about 100 yards. It was loud and echoed through the valley, just like the whoop. I became scared and thought, are these things trying to flank me? I went inside for the night. Every morning I would sit outside, drinking my coffee, and I could hear heavy movement to my right. Heavy, like a deer or bear breaking limbs and moving brush. But for the life of me, I could never see anything. I even pulled out my binoculars, but nothing. Fourth activity. One night, while sitting on the second level deck, just as the sun was setting, I heard something or someone chatting below the deck under a canopy of trees. I listened, but could not understand what they were saying. They were not far enough away that I should not be able to understand them. I listened so hard, but could not understand what they were saying. I started yelling, "Hello, hello, hello," down there, but no reply. I yelled loud enough that it rang out across the valley. They kept on talking and started going their separate ways until I could no longer hear them. Final day. My youngest son said he was going to hike up to this ridgeline not far from the cabin. I reminded him to take his phone for emergencies. About 10 minutes into his hike, I got a call. My son said something was walking beside him in the wood line. Whenever he stopped, it would stop, but he could not see anything. While on the phone with him, something threw a rock, and it landed behind. He said he was feeling a little concerned. I told him to walk, not run, and to head back to the cabin. Whatever it was, it followed him almost all the way to the cabin. Anyway, that's my story, and yes, I am a believer. We rented a cabin in Whittier, North Carolina, and leave in 2 weeks. I'll let you know if anything happens. Signed, Tina, but you can just call me T. Name's Frank Whitmer. I'm 48 years old, born and raised near Kisatchie Bayou in Louisiana. Louisiana is called the sportsman's paradise, and with good reason. I was brought up hunting and fishing. My daddy taught me how to track, and I've always prided myself on knowing what is in the woods around me. But that feeling confident about what was in the woods, that changed a few winters back. This occurrence was in mid-December. We had a good cold snap roll through, and it dropped the temperatures down into the 20s. That's prime rut season. I'd been watching a big buck on a trail cam for more than a month. He was a real heavy 10-point. I blew up one of the pictures and counted those points. Now, he might have only been an 8-point, and I really wouldn't know till I measured some of those protrusions. But man, oh man, that rack was beautiful. It was big, and it was balanced. He was real thick through the shoulders, too. He had a big barreled chest that rolled forward on him. And he was smart. He always only moved at dusk, and he never lingered long in one area. But man, oh man, he was something to see. I really wanted to meet him in the worst kind of way. I mean, I had a VIP section in my freezer marked off just for his meat, and I had some prime real estate over my fireplace for that big, beautiful rack of his. Oh, you know I wanted him in the worst way. So this one day, I go out and I get all set up in my stand by 3 o'clock. The winds were coming out of the west. There was no moon yet, way too early, but in a couple hours it would be there. And the area was as quiet as a graveyard. I'm sitting up about 15 feet in a climber near an old logging trail that I know was being used by a lot of the game. I was hoping that buck might come through right at last light. I had caught him on the trail cam coming through there often enough within the same hour that I thought maybe I might have a chance. And sure enough, just about 5 o'clock, it's just starting dusk, I hear movement, real soft, controlled steps. I raise the scope, and I see him ease out of the brush. He's stepping slow. He's cautious, all right, but there was something in his high-stepping way that said, he owns the place. And as far as bucks were going that season, he did. He looked good on camera, but in person, he was something else. Broad, a thick, healthy chest. I finally noticed there's a long scar down his one broad side. I couldn't see that on the cam, but I could see it in my scope. I guess that was a trophy of his own, no doubt. Man, I'd love to sit and hear that story from him. And his hide, it was a deep blonde red color, silky and healthy looking. I'm admiring him, and then I tell myself, stop dilly-dallying with this buck or you're going to lose him. So I line up the shot. I take my breath, and I squeeze. Crack. He drops. Clean shot. He didn't even kick. I wait less than a minute. I climb down, and I start walking over to him. I'm about 35 yards away, and I feel it. This thing, this prickly hair on the back of your neck kind of feeling. It's that instinct you develop when you spend a lot of time out in the woods. You know you're no longer alone. It might be another hunter, and it might be something else. I quickly drop down to one knee, pull my scope up, and scan the distant tree line. There's nothing there. I scan down to the far left, slow, and then I pan back and scan to the far right of me. I took my time, and I was looking very closely. It was then that I got the other sense that there was something else wrong. I noticed it had fallen to pure silence all around me. Now, winter at dusk has its own kind of a hush that falls, but this was not that. This was something that set my teeth on edge. We do have some bears in Louisiana, but they are few and far in between, and they're mostly not much of a threat. The biggest predator we usually have to worry about here are swamp puppies. Well, that's what we call them. The rest of you call them alligators. And I was nowhere near a swamp. And it was too cold, even if I was. No swamp puppy could swim in those kinds of temperatures. They're in their winter dens for sure. I scoped the area again and still was not seeing anything. I decided I need to go on and get my buck, process it, and get the heck out of there. I start walking to where the buck was, where it fell. I look all around. I couldn't believe it. My buck is gone. Gone. Do you hear me? Gone. I could see something had bled there for a bit. You could see where it had been, where it had fallen. It sure didn't get up and walk away on its own. There was no blood trail that I could see. Not broken frozen plants to show where it had gone. And nothing had been dragged through there. There was no trail, no tramplings, no scuffling of leaves, no broken brush branches. There was nothing. It was just gone. If you'd been somewhere in the tree line or somewhere else and able to see me, I'm sure I looked like a funny sight. I was standing there looking stupid and feeling confused as all get out. I kept looking around stupidly like maybe I was losing it. Maybe this was someone else's buck from another day. But no, all the fresh signs were right there. I knew in my heart this was where that buck fell. I knew I had made a good, clean shot. I saw him drop right here. I start walking in a slow circle. I spiral out a couple of feet away, and I keep repeating this circle. And then I see it. I see a track. I don't mean deer tracks. These weren't paw or hoof tracks. This was a foot, a really big one. I look out just a few more feet, and I see another right in line. So from 1 foot track to the next was about 4 feet apart. And when I say foot track, I mean it was a bare, human-shaped footprint, and a huge one at that. The ground was frozen and hard, so no print had been sunk in, but the outline in the frozen dead grass was easy to see. I'm standing there and I'm looking at the tracks. I'm following them back and forth, and now I'm getting the whole picture. There's a set of prints coming in from the trees at an angle right to where the buck should have been. And then, at another angle, they go straight back to the trees. And the retreating prints are spaced much farther apart than the first ones I found. So when it left, it was running. It had to come in and pick my deer up and carry it off. And it carried it off at a run. That was all I could make of it. But those prints, I didn't know what to make of those, except that thing was either smart as they come and knew exactly when I was looking the other way with my scope, or it was something invisible, and I just couldn't believe either one. And what can come in, pick up a buck that weighs several hundred pounds, and run off with it? Not just carry it off, but it does it at a full run. The thing you're thinking of, though, was exactly what I was thinking of at that moment. And holy cows of Jesus, I wanted no part of that. I did not want to see it or have anything to do with it. I could have lived my whole life and never had that. That feeling, though, of being watched made me shiver. I looked dead ahead into the tree line where the prints led. Was there something there just inside the darkness of the trees, watching me? I shivered again. I took one last look, then I turned around and I started backing out of there. I kept walking and I was almost to my truck, and suddenly my thoughts changed. Heck no. You know what? I was going to go back and I was going to follow and find my buck. That was my buck. I got there and I followed the tracks deep into the trees. Now, by this time, it was probably about 40 minutes since I'd hit the buck. I'd walked halfway to my truck and then walked back. I'd had plenty of time to process the tracks and all that had happened, and I had already thought the word Bigfoot to myself many, many times. I followed those tracks, and yeah, I found that buck. At first, I thought this must have been a bear cache that I'd found, and I was a little bit on high alert, though I saw no bear scat and no other signs of bear. I thought it was a cache because the deer was shredded in parts, and it was covered with broken pine boughs. Now, I said there was nothing there that said bear, and there wasn't. There was not a bear paw print, not a single claw mark, not a tooth mark, and that deer, I said shredded, but it had been torn, it had been ripped. It was not chewed, it was not bitten, it was ripped. I looked at the lifeless, glazed-over eyes of the buck. Well, I could only see one. In another situation, I could have and would have salvaged that buck meat if I could have. Even if the gut was ripped open, which it was, and the intestines opened and spilled all over the meat, which it was, that can be cleaned. But something told me don't take the time. At first I said I was at least going to take the head and antlers. I had earned those. I would have preferred the meat too, but I would take the antlers if nothing else. The head and the antlers were twisted around at an unnatural angle. When I untwisted it, I quickly saw the head and the antlers weren't worth taking either. I'm going to skip the full description, but I suspect a rock of some kind was used to bash the head in to finish the deer off, and one whole side of the antlers was snapped off at the brow point, while the other side had the main point broken. Now, just how much force it would take to snap a buck's antlers was an equation I didn't want to stick around to work out. Up close, I realized the spread on that rack must have been bigger than I first thought. Not that it mattered now. I was gazing into the buck's dead eyes, sad at the way it had turned out, when I snapped to attention because I heard something walking toward my position. I couldn't see it yet because of the pine trees, but I dropped the buck's head and lit out of there like my butt was on fire. I turned back to look when I was about halfway to the end of the trees, and I saw a large, dark brown outline against the green of the pines. It was standing, and I'm certain it was looking in my direction, and it was standing where the buck carcass was. I was a good 80 to 100 feet away from it, maybe more, and even from that distance, its proportions were not normal for a human. You know the guy that plays Jack Reacher? He would look small next to the outline I saw. Without seeing it close, I'm going to say that I do believe it was hair-covered, though it might not have been. But I did see arms and shoulders and a chest and a head. That's what I saw from the outline. I'm betting there were legs, too. I just couldn't see them clearly from the way it was standing and the low brush between us. It's like it heard me being near its food source, and it came running back to run me off. And it did all right. Run me off, I mean. Now, what should have taken me usually about a half hour to get to my truck only took me maybe 12, max 15 minutes, the way I was hot-footing it. I remember the size of that creature. There's no way that was a person. And I was clearly wearing a hunter orange hat and vest. I clearly had a rifle. Any normal human would have made a move to let me know don't shoot, and that there was not a drop of orange on that dark shape anywhere. Nobody would be fool enough during hunting season to go out without some kind of neon on them. Now, under other circumstances, and I have thought about this a lot, but under some other circumstance, if I had encountered it some other day, I might not have been so quick to run. I might have wanted a closer look at it, but not that day. Not when there was food as an issue between us. I know as a hunter and dealing with animals, that is when things will go sideways faster than you can control it. I really didn't even mind the loss of the meat, because clearly it was going to be food for something else. But did it have to destroy that beautiful, beautiful rack? I still have questions I think about almost every day, like, how far had it gone after it stashed that carcass there? Do they stash their food near where they sleep? Or was that maybe where it slept? Was it kind of like a den there, and it went off to go do something after it ate some of the deer and came back? I wonder how long it would take to eat a whole deer. How did it take the deer that day without me seeing it? You know, you would think that seeing a Bigfoot would be the hardest thing for me to believe about that day, the most incredulous thing, right? But no, it's that I did not see the Bigfoot that is still the hardest for me to believe. How did I not see it take the deer? I still have lots of questions and no answers, like almost everyone else that's ever seen one. So that's how I lost a good buck to a Bigfoot. And truth be told, I'm still not over it. Probably never will be. Partly because I've not seen another buck with a rack like that since. And with that creature out there eating on them, perhaps I never will. All right, well, that was Frank's story from Louisiana. And I do wonder about how much Bigfoot understands. I mean, about hunters in particular. Because I've had many different reports and read of others that the rack on a deer or its face have been deliberately damaged. It wasn't necessary. They could snap the neck and often do. And I've read that intestines were split open and spread into the body cavity. It's as if Bigfoot knows what a hunter really values. Maybe it's sending a message to hunters, don't take my food. Or maybe it's just sending the message, stay out of my woods. And if that's true, maybe, just maybe, we would be wise to listen. Don't mess with Bigfoot's meat or his woods. Well, thanks again for sitting with me through tonight's journey. Stay safe out there. Check your doors and windows tonight. And if you got them, keep an eye on those outdoor cameras. Always check them before stepping outside. 'Cause you never know, do you? All right, and listen, before you go, I just want to remind you to always remember, absence of proof is not proof of absence. Thanks for listening. See you soon.